Well, Raymond got me coffee this morning. Literally. Took a little jog. That was kind of nice. Got to get this car out of here today. And I'm going to start cleaning up a little bit. I got quite a mess in here, so definitely want to clean up some. Parts everywhere. Just everywhere. So I'll do that. And then I got the other Corvette sitting outside. I'm going to take it just for a little spin around the block to get the rust off the brakes from it raining outside. That's never fun. I really hate leaving the customer's car outside. This guy was cool with it. I have no other choice. I have nowhere to put it. I got too much going on, and he wanted me to work on it. So I got it here, parked it outside. It's been sitting there for a week now after I looked it over a little bit. That was before starting this video thing, so I'll go ahead and I'll give you a glance at what I found already, and then we'll go from there today. I'll fix what I can. I got to pull off the headers. I got quite a bit to do on that car, so we'll go through that throughout the day. Alright, clean enough for now. I'm going to pull that other car in and get started on it. Okay, here's the other car. I got to cover up some of the labels here quick. That way I don't have to try and blur them out in editing software. It's kind of a pain in the ass. So I'm just going to throw a couple pieces of tape on a couple things, and then I'll be ready to show you guys the vehicle. So I'll get started on that. Here we go with that 2x4 thing again. You gotta pry up on this side of the car. These Corvettes are kind of a pain in the butt to get on the hoist. Alright, so here's the car. It's got quite a few problems going on with it. Mainly, the last person who put a motor in the car, they did a very, very sloppy job. You might be wondering why I'm willing to waste the time on somebody who does such a sloppy job to cover their name up. It's because of just straight respect. I don't like bashing companies or the people that do it. You know, I don't know. They might have a bad day. They might have had just a bad experience with the customer. I don't know. I don't know the full story. I don't want to judge. I just know the work that was done was really, really shitty. So I'm going to go over some of those things with you as to what's wrong with it, although it's pretty obvious what's wrong with the work that was done. And give you an idea of what's under the hood of some of the Corvettes that come in here in need of my serious help. So let's begin. I don't even know where to start. I guess I can just start anywhere. The power steering pump, I mean the bracket, it's right here, right? It's obviously, see if I can get you around there. It's obviously supposed to slide onto that bracket. Well, the hose sitting right there, you can see it has a ways to go on yet. I tried getting it off of there. I tore trying to get it off of there. So I don't know if it's glued on or if it just happened to self-adhere, which happens with rubber hoses sometimes if the wrong chemical gets on them or something. Yeah, it's stuck on there. Maybe the guy used the wrong hose. Maybe that's actually a heater hose and not the proper power steering hose. I'm not sure. But either way, it's stuck on there. I can't move it without wrecking it. So I have a new hose here to replace it, and then I'm going to get it properly attached on that bracket. the radiator. There's supposed to be mount that goes to these two holes and holds down on this with a little piece of rubber. Both of them are missing, so the radiator flops around, right? The hangers underneath aren't even there to support the bottom of the radiator. Somebody had to add those after this guy got a hold of it. And I don't know, there's a lot of lost parts, I guess, in this whole process, and you'll get to see that too. But yeah, that's not supposed to be like that. The fan, let's see here, isn't really attached hardly at all. You can see the large gap there, right here, right? So all kinds of air is getting by that fan without any reasoning. You shouldn't have that big of a gap there. I don't know, I gotta look into that yet. I'd imagine maybe it's not slid into the tabs, or I don't know, there's something weird going on there. I gotta look into it. One thing I already fixed was the PCV system. So previous to me getting the car, this isn't exactly ideal, it's just what I had lying around to make this whole system work. This filter was on the other side of the car where the oil fill cap is. Oh, excuse me. And this fitting here was not here. So what it was before was this little aluminum piece that was just like pushed into the hole, and it wasn't welded, glued, or anything. So it fell off, and the hose that was attached to it was literally just in the back there, attached to nothing. It was hooked to nothing. So this car is covered in oil underneath, and a good amount of it could be because of that. Now, because of that thing breathing unfiltered air, and this being a supercharged car, lucky this guy only has 500 miles on it. What happens is the blow-off valve on these cars, whenever you're not under load, it's constantly just wasting air and just blowing air everywhere. And it's almost like a street sweeper effect, where it blows the sand on the ground because it can't escape out of a sealed hood, so it goes down, and it blows wind everywhere. So these engines get really dirty. It causes all that dirt, debris, dust, whatever, to end up in that system. Now, it's usually blowing out because of back pressure, especially when this guy, which I've seen his PCV work in the past, is not great. When this thing is set up the way it was, it's just going to have air flowing any direction, in, out, or otherwise, during any operation of the motor. I'll go to the other side here and show you why. So normally, you would have like a hose here on the intake hooked to one valve cover, or the valley cover, which you can't really see that, but there's a port underneath there that goes to the valley cover, and then you would have the valve covers vented somehow. Well, the best system to do is a cross flow system, where you run fresh air from one side across the V of the motor, the crankcase, the whole works, and then into the other side, and then into the intake. Ideally, it would be nice to take that thing there and run that to a very large catch can that has a good sized vent in it, and that way under vacuum conditions it sucks out the crankcase, and under pressure or load conditions it will actually vent out of the filter. Right now, with that the way it is, most likely that filter, whenever he's under load, is going to get some oil on it, and then eventually it's going to sit there and drip on the valve cover. Just an occasional drip from time to time, which will get messy. It'll have to be wiped up. But it's much better than it was. At least it's filtered, and it's not going to contaminate the engine anymore. Now, I added a little joke here for the guy. I replaced his filter that he had with this Epic cap for a Corvette. It just happens to fit the valve cover, and I got a kick out of it, so I threw it on there for him. I think he'll get a kick out of it too. If he doesn't, it's not the worst thing in the world. A little sandpaper will take care of that label. So, just a little fun note there. Another thing this guy did. Now, you see that kink there? That kink is on the dipstick tube. So checking the oil on this thing is very, very, very difficult because the dipstick can't get through it. Now, you notice the thing right next to the tube there and why it's kinked? That guy? That's a ignition wire, or the coil pack. You see the coil pack there? It's not attached to anything. It's flopping around in there. And that one on the other side is flopping around too. He didn't attach anything. So here's the fuel pressure regulator. That's not okay, you know what I mean? That's not acceptable, just to let things flop around like that. What else? That's the majority of the stuff on the top half of the car. Oh, just notice this. See that bolt there? It don't look right, does it? That probably should be a little straighter than that. That is for the tension adjuster on the supercharger belt. Yeah, you definitely don't want a bolt looking like that. It's going to be binding like a son of a gun right now. So I might have to address that if I can find the time. The customer and I agreed on a allowed amount to start with, and I'll have to contact him as soon as I get all this stuff done that I'm going to do today, and let him know where I'm at and ask him what he wants to do. But what I'm going to do today is pull these headers off and then address a lot of the things underneath that I'm about to show you. So we'll stop here and continue when I get the car in the air. Okay, we'll give you a crouch down view here quick first. But here's the underside of this car, back all the way to the front. Now we'll start with the front, work our way back. This oil cooler here, it was held on by one flimsy little like Menards hardware store status bracket, and it would flop around. See, it's much more solid now. That's one of the things I did on this vehicle right away. Here are those brackets that they had on here, and you can see these nuts here. Those weren't there before. Also, this piece was bent, you know, like tipped that way and pointing against the tubes and fins of the radiator. I kicked it out, so it's not quite so bad. This bracket is doing the same thing. In fact, it's still kicked out a little bit, but it's not as bad. I tried prying it, I just couldn't get at it very easily. But I had to add these bolts because this one was sitting that way and it was tipping the radiator all goofy. So I did that just to at least make it safe and not going to have a problem on the road quite as easy. Here's the factory mounting location. Now normally there would be a bracket that comes down here and goes around this guy. So that's obviously missing, another missing part. You can see this thing sitting here. This is the charge pipe, and whoever added this, they were having it hooked on here. Okay, that's not the best support, and that's the reason it came off. On top of that, they apparently didn't put another nut on here, but you can't have your charge pipe doing that. It's gonna blow off going down the road, so that's no good. What else? Got some kind of janky wiring thing going on here. I'm gonna be leaving that alone for now. Here we go. This is for the transmission oil cooler. It's a manual, but the manual requires cooling being in the back. It gets quite hot on these cars. So this guy took and looped the hoses like so, right? And he did it against the exhaust. I mean, what is he expecting to happen? The exhaust gets maybe a little hot. I'm sure it's too cold. It won't melt those hoses, right? Well, no, it's gonna cause an issue. So on top of that, I don't know if we'll be able to see this or not. No, I can't see it. Maybe I'll show you later. But it is, I'm pretty confident it's rubbing through on one of those lines where it's about to leak. So I have to take and address those lines. The problem is, this line here, he took and cut it. So now that it's cut, it's missing this quick connect fitting. And I can't find these lines anywhere. So what I'm going to have to do is try and adapt it to AN fittings at the transmission and then run it all the way forward. That's one of the reasons I'm pulling the exhaust off. I'm going to take the full system all the way back off until here where this joint is, and then there's a plate up here that I have to remove all those little bolts and pull that off. The lines, you can see the two lines there, they go to either side of the transmission and they run all the way to the front. Another reason I have to pull this all apart, I'm going to grab a light for you. Okay, another reason I have to pull all this apart is inside here. Let's see if I can get this to work for me. Okay, So inside here we have, if you can see that, it's got a little melted, can't quite get it, but there's a melted section on that connector. I gotta tie that up out of the way. The other side, let's see here. See that connector sitting there? It's also against the exhaust, and that's on the same side I was on with that other connector. Oh, there, I just unstuck it. There, you see the melted section right there? Yeah, that's not supposed to be like that. So, there's that guy too. Now we're on the other header, so the driver's side. That was the passenger side. See, that one's melted. He must have had it disconnected and laying on there and melted it before he even connected it. Now, that side was melted before, or from before, and now the other side is melted from now, from sitting on it. So he didn't learn his lesson the first time, apparently. There's some of the drips from the plastic. This line here is way too close, but it wasn't touching. It didn't cause an issue, luckily. There's a couple wires up there just stranded, hanging there, doing nothing, chilling. So, oh, I think that one might be stripped. Yeah, it is. Pretty sure it is. I didn't even notice that yet. Yeah. See that wire up there? It's got a twist joint going on, and it's wide open. That's real nice. So you got that. Now, the oil cooler lines. Here's the oil cooler lines. See the one right there? Yeah, it's not supposed to be melting either, so that's not in the right spot as well. There's so much wrong with this car. It's just insane. He's known me for a while. It's just he started with this guy working on his car, and the guy was adamant about only letting him work on it. Like, you know, it's his baby, and I can understand that. When I build cars, I want to be the guy who works on it too. It's just kind of the way things are. You never want to. I should probably get that light out from behind me. You never want to, you know, have somebody else working on your job or your car. It's kind of it feels disrespectful when a guy takes it somewhere else. It feels like you're not adequate for the job. In this case, well, yeah, it's gonna happen. If you push work out like that, you're not gonna continue to keep the customer. They're gonna find out, and they will leave. He's been having bad luck with people that he's had work on his car. Hopefully, well, I know, but as far as what he thinks is, hopefully I'm going to be different for him. I don't push work out like that. I refuse to, and it's bad for business. So I know there's other people out there like me, but he hasn't found them yet. They are far and few and in between. We're getting pretty rare, I have to say, especially younger guys like myself actually taking pride in their work like I do. It's very, very rare. But enough about that. Let's get to working on this car and keep it moving, or get it moving again, so he can actually drive and enjoy the car. He hasn't been able to enjoy this car for quite some time because of the guy who was working on it. Long story short, he damaged something working on it. The car was down for a very long time. He had to put a motor in. It was down for well over a year, and he just got it running. Literally got 500 miles on it. Now it's here because he's like, this is ridiculous. He can't handle that guy anymore. So he's here with me, and I'm gonna do my best to make sure I keep him happy without breaking the bank too badly, because I know and feel for how he feels about the whole scenario. This car has been nothing but a disaster for him because of the previous person working on it, and it's not my fault, but I still feel bad. Yeah, so anyway, let's get going. Get this car done. Oh, coffee. Anyway. Okay, so you hear that? That's the bracket that's supposed to hold that thing. It's attached to something, but I don't know what, and it's not attached very well. And holy hell, that was a long bolt. Let's find out I don't know how well you can see that. That's the bracket for it. Attached to something. I don't know what. It's supposed to be attached to the cylinder, and we'll see how well, if at all, if it's attached. Oh no. I hope that's not true, what I'm feeling. God, I hope I'm wrong. Oh wait. Okay, I am wrong. Good. There's a nut here that's loose. Must be attached to the firewall instead of the head. Oh, it's a bolt. Wow, it's actually a bolt. Didn't expect that. Felt like there's some kind of stud in the firewall. Yeah, there's something back there. Ah, there's a little stud that comes off of the firewall for holding the AC and heater lines, and that one is what is holding it in place, or hardly holding it in place. Oh my. Yeah. Here's the bolt. I don't need a wrench for that bolt. It wasn't even hardly in there. Loose. Hope we didn't leave head bolts loose. Jeez. Oh. Alright, might as well pull that out of there. So I have a replacement for this. His oil was full. A little over full, but full. There's that nasty kink. Oh, you can see that. That is a nasty kink. So I'm going to replace that. I got a new dipstick sitting back there. I ordered, so I'll put that in. Wow. Oh, look at that. It even kinked the... That's terrible. I don't know if I'll pull that through or not. Nope, can't even pull it through. I'll have to... try and... There we go. Got it out of there. So I can salvage the dipstick at least. Oh my gosh. Got something to show you guys. Let's see here. Oops, sorry about that flicker. Almost dropped the phone. Alright. See that there? That is the ground. Exposed, which isn't the worst thing in the world, but it's hooked to the header of all things. Instead of that nice bolt hole right next to it that, you know, would be intended for, oh, I don't know, maybe a ground or something. Weird. And then he's got 10 mil like oil pan bolts holding the thing on, the header on, with exception of that weird goofy thing right there, stainless thing, whatever it is. Those aren't exhaust bolts, and they're not intended for using for exhaust, so I'll be probably replacing those with some stainless units, which aren't intended for it, but they work well. And these are not intended for heat. I'm sure they would hold up fine, but I guess I just don't put them on there. Personal preference. So I'll go ahead and get this header off, and then go after the other side. He actually has another ground just like that on the other end of the header, so apparently he has plenty of grounds, but they're just not in ground-like locations. They're not supposed to be attached to headers of all. Seems a little odd that he would do that, but whatever. It works, I guess. There's a funky looking bolt. It's got a standard diagram on top. He uses a standard size socket, but pretty sure that's a metric thread. It's a little weird. Yeah, they're a metric thread. They're just a really goofy looking, standard looking bolt. Another one of those things I forgot to mention is down here there's an ABS control box or module. It's got all the hydraulic control and the electronic side of things in it too. There's a bracket that I had the customer order because this guy left that bracket off of there. It's not at all attached. It's like dangling against the power steering rack pinion, and it's flopping around like everything else on this car. So get a good technician to work on your car. It doesn't have to be me, it just has to be a good technician. Sloppy techs should not be in the business, and they only wreck things for everyone else. Although they bring me work, sometimes I probably don't charge enough for the work like I should. But I feel guilty. I mean, I know what it's like. I know I've been there, had bad service. I haven't been in the technician position, but because I fix everything myself. But as far as getting bad service, I know what that's like. I've received plenty of that before, and it's a sucky feeling. It really is. So find yourself a good technician. He's got some different wires on this side than the other side. These are not stock wires, or something else. That is interesting. That one's a black wire. Black, blue, black, and this one in here is blue without a heat shield thing. Okay. I'm not going to pull this coil back off of here. It works. It's held better than the other side. I'm just going to leave it alone. Not quite right for some reason. Something's weird about the way it's mounted, but I'm just going to leave it because it is solid. And this guy's one of those deals, he just wants it safe. So I'm just trying to do that, make it safe. So the wiring harnesses, for instance, aren't going to leave them stranded because they melt against everything in the exhaust. The oil cooler line's not going to leak because it's burning on the exhaust and cause a fire. You know, safety things. Man, I just cannot get that thing. I'm gonna move you guys. There's the ground that he was grounding out with this bolt. It's covered in oil. That's nice. Oh, and it's got exposed wires on it. Oh, the wire shielding's all brittle from being oil soaked. And probably hot. He probably had it too close to the exhaust, knowing him. Oh, shameful. Shameful work. Gotta wipe that bolt off before you can set it down. No wonder this thing smells like burning oil. Look at all the oil on here. It's just covered in oil. Man, that thing was leaking like crazy. No wonder the bottom is so soaking wet. Something tells me I'm going to be degreasing this car before it leaves. Oh, that's nice. Nice of them. Down. You can only put it on one way. Oh well. Anyway. I'm pretty sure that this ground here is supposed to be underneath alongside the block. I'm going to look into that when I'm under there because I'd like to put it in the proper place. Pretty confident I know which ground that is and where it's supposed to go. It's not supposed to be up on the head. Shoving it down there now. Give you guys a quick glance at what that system looks like down here. Exhaust. See if I can... Alright, I'm going to tip you, but whatever. That's all I can do. Okay, oh, well, look at that. I didn't even notice that before. See that bracket down there? That's supposed to be behind that motor mount where those lines, those cooler lines are going, and attached to the side of the block. I can see the bolt hole in there, but I can't really point it out. Maybe I'll try and do it in the editing. But there's a bolt hole there that it's supposed to be attached to. The bolt hole above it, I believe, is for that ground that I just found attached to the header. So I'll attach those properly. Oh yeah, you see that coolant sensor? It's broken. A little piece missing. That seal is not going to seal very well. So coolant sensor is also damaged from the work this guy did. Most likely. Because I don't want to assume, but most likely it was. So there's that header going all the way down there along the firewall. So, alright, I got that loose. I might have to undo the steering shift. I think I will, just for good measure, to make sure I can get the header out. A lot of times those headers just will not come out on the driver's side. So I'm going to undo that quick just to make sure I can get it out of there. There's a 10 mil bolt right there. That's the bolt I got to take out. Then this thing will slide back. Okay, that's disconnected. Alright, we can see a little bit more now, so I'll get you looking up at this car quick and show you a little bit better view of what went wrong. Well, let's start here. See that? Hang on. Change hands. There we go. Alright. See that wire there? It's for the knock sensor. I mean, I don't know why he did that. A little bit off to me, but whatever. Must have cut him, ripped him something. You can see that block is really new. That's because it was just put in like 500 miles ago, like I said, but look at that. That's not probably a good way to do things, huh? So we'll fix that. There's that ground I was talking about. Now, I'm pretty confident that harness is not only supposed to be moved, it's supposed to be going back behind. Oh, look at that. Missing a motor mount bolt. Oh my gosh. Anyway, so that harness is supposed to come through down under here and then be bracketed to this thing, you know, the engine block. And then on top of that, this guy here is supposed to follow that harness and be grounded down there. I mean, it could even go up here for all I care, but it's supposed to be on the block, not on the header. Here's one of those connectors. Let's see if we can get a melted side here. So, too much light. Do this. Alright. You can see right here, it got too hot. The actual connector on the O2 itself is just destroyed there. But this actually doesn't look too bad. One thing though, is if I wanted to, I got another connection here that I can take off and replace that little wire in. So that's not a big deal. Look at this. Replaced one of the cables. Just left it hanging there. Instead of actually, oh, wow! How did this thing even start? Jeez, oh, it's gonna need a starter. That's not good. So I better get a starter for this thing ordered up. Everything about this car and the work that was done on it is just so shady, so bad. The ground attached to one of the mounting bolts, it's not supposed to be on the mounting bolts. Missing a oil pan bolt. No surprise there. Wonder what else we're missing. Oh, here we go. We're missing the bolts for the bell housing, probably because the oil pan is stripped out. Most likely. Let's see. Well, it might be okay. I'll have to give it a try there. But alright, here's those oil cooler lines I was telling you about. See, this is damaged, so the clip wouldn't even work in there. That's probably part of the reason he did that. I'm surprised it's holding in there. He doesn't even have the clip in it. It's lucky that didn't blow out of there without the clip on it. So you got that there. Then you got this line that's a bit kinked. And then I better get the light moved. Right there, you see that? That's where it's rubbing the header. And that's also where it's rubbing the header. So rubbing through in both spots. It's just terrible, terrible work. Here is that ABS module I was talking about. That is floppy loose. Go up here and push on it. That thing just bounces around. Everything just bounces around in this car. Nothing was put together. So I'll get all this stuff as much as I can fixed up, and we'll see what we can accomplish here. That's interesting. I just noticed something. I don't know if you guys can see that. There we go. See that? Almost a bubble. It's like a bubble in the pan here. Wondering why that is. That shouldn't be bulged out. They're normally flat. This is a bad casting, or if he did something, or the previous motor did something, I'm not sure. But that bulge is a little interesting to see. Alright. Here's the exhaust. Here's that connector. So I'll get a couple O2s ordered, because that's the worst part of that connector. Here's the other side. All melted and destroyed. We'll get him one of those too. Look at that. It's even a new sensor. It looks like it doesn't look very old. Shame. What a shame. Here's those fittings. They go inside there. I don't know if... There's the other one. It's a quick connect, so I'll have to disconnect those. This one I'm not sure what I can do. I might have to splice the line with a flare fitting. I think I can do it. I think I can get it to work. I'm pretty sure it's a 5/16 line, and that's the equivalent of -4 AN, I believe. Or no, that's quarter. I don't know. One of the ANs I believe fits that, or I can at least adapt it to fit it. So I'll do that, and then run it all the way to the front. I got to pull this cover off, which, speaking of, is missing a bolt there, missing a bolt there, missing one over here. It's not missing too many. The last car I had a lot more of them missing, but I'm willing to bet you some of them are loose. So we'll pull that panel down, and then oh, look at that, the lines are just resting on the aluminum there, and so is the harness. Oh, there's the other thing, this harness here. It burnt through the harness. Yeah, it was rusty on the exhaust. So I got a lot of work ahead of me. I have a feeling this guy's bill is going to go up a little bit. I'm going to have to contact him and let him know as soon as I get to my limit, and then move forward. So I will continue the process of fixing this disaster that somebody created. It's unfortunate, but I gotta fix it. Somebody really should stick to maybe a different career path, not actual mechanical part of cars. You're probably wondering why I'm using this right now. On a flare fitting of all things. It's because there's where they had the line, the seam of the line, it's got like a little bump there, and I know it won't seal quite as well as it should. It probably would seal if I tighten it down enough, because it's going on aluminum, steel on aluminum, and crush it. But it only sealed once, and then it'd be no good after that. So I'm trying to just smooth that little line very carefully with the grinder. A little piece of sandpaper. So I found a piece of porting sander that I have for doing cylinder head stuff, basically. And I'm actually going to show you that. That turned out so well, I got to show you. So what I did is I took this guy here. The first try was like a different angled one. But this guy here, it was actually coned pretty good to begin with. It was worn out. You can see this is the tip of the arbor itself, is right here. I just shoved it in there. And the angle that this is at was almost perfect for the angle that the flare is at. So I just stuck it in there and then just walked it back and forth a little bit to get it to wear in on there. This is a really fine sanding wheel. I don't even know where I picked this one up, but normally I buy more aggressive ones than this. This is probably a 120 grit or something. It's pretty fine paper for this style of wheel. So I'm going to grab you here. Gotta show you the results of this line. It actually turned out really darn nice. We'll see if we can get to focus. There you go. You can see that seam right on the right there. Just a very faint line. Now the rest of this turned out so darn nice. I can't complain about that one bit. That should have zero problem sealing. So it turned out pretty darn good. Of course, the tool that I use, the tool that I use to hold it, it squeezes this down a little bit. which is no big deal because once you slide this guy over, it sits over there, and in fact, this piece here is coned at the bottom. It's got a little bit of a cone shape inside there, so it fits the metal line right on that little curve there, and then this goes over top, and when it gets tightened down, it fits really well. So I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of anti-seize type material behind here so this doesn't rust, because if a little water got caught in there, it would start to rust otherwise. This is stainless here, so this I'm not worried about, but the line itself is just standard steel. It's like a coated steel, and when you do that flaring, you can see the coating is kind of chewed off there, so I got to do something about that coating. I had to give this line a little bit of a bend here so that I can get away from the torque tube to clear for this nut. So I got to put the bracket, the stock bracket on here, and then I'm going to use that stock bracket to hold it up against that torque tube as close as possible so it can't move. Okay, the thread is just it's the same pitch as a dash 6 line, but the size of it's just a little bit smaller in diameter, so it doesn't fit. However, I have these. They're a NPT, quarter-inch NPT, and that happens to have the same thread. It's just a tapered version of the thread. So the size is about the same at the small side of the NPT. So I'm just going to take a pipe tap for that size fitting, and I'm going to thread this guy, this little dash 6 in there, and then I can do the hard line from there all the way forward. I'm going to have to clean out the transmission hole pretty good, but it shouldn't be too big of a deal. I can put an air nozzle in the center of it and blow back, and it'll just blow all the stuff out of it, or hook a vacuum cleaner up to it. But I'll get all the debris out of there. So I only ran the tap in a little bit. You can see the little piece of metal sitting there. All I did was just enough to open up, just so I can get the fitting in there, just barely enough so it's comfortable. It went in about 2 threads before by hand, which would be what, like 4, give or take, if I were to start threading it in, and then it expand to the point where I can't thread it in much more. So now I added another couple threads worth, and it should go in plenty far to seal. And at the same time, the transmission, since this is the same thread pitch, the transmission itself, the other fitting would still work if I needed to thread it in there. It would still fit and it would still seal. So by doing so, I have not damaged the transmission in any way. I just opened up the hole slightly on the very first 2 threads. So it shouldn't be a big deal. It'll work out perfectly. This is that torque tube. He had plenty long bolts in there. This is actually perhaps from a Japanese car or something, it looks like to me. This is definitely a GM bolt, but that's, I don't know. I'll find use in that little thing somewhere. Certainly not on that though, so I'm going to replace those bolts now. Okay, I'm looking at these wires right here. The part that was melted was more tape and the surround material than anything. That melted onto the coating of the wire. The coating of the wire got apparently really hot, but it just started to melt. It didn't quite melt through, so there's no exposed wire. I am going to just tape up what I can no exposed wire I can see. I'm going to tape up some of it, and then I'm going to go ahead and just wrap the whole works back up and make sure it's tucked out of the way so it doesn't have a chance to melt into each other again. That was interesting. In order to get the starter off, I literally had to cut up the nut. That's the only way I could get that off of there. Oh, well now I see the problem. Now that I got it down low enough. The actual housing itself, oop, that's nice and hot. It's actually broken right here, so that explains why that was a problem. In fact, it's cracked even down here. I doubt you can see that, but and it's cracked over here, so whatever happened to this thing, I don't know, maybe it got dropped or something. It's definitely no good anymore. I'm surprised it started the car. Give you guys a little share of what I did here so far. So as far as the oil lines go, I got this one threaded up there. Nice fitting, right? Then I got it coming down, and it goes around there through the factory bracket. There's the other one. I'm gonna have to order some more line before I can complete that. Down the torque tube just like it should. Then it'll go to the other factory bracket. And then unlike the original, it hangs tighter to the bell housing. It goes around for the starter so I can still access the bolts for it. Get it in easy enough while staying very close to the bell housing. And then it'll end right there. I'll put a fitting and splice that to a hose, which will go up to the front. So it's a lot better than it was, and it'll clear the headers better than before as well. So that's where that sits. The wiring harness is just gone. It is way up there where it belongs. Now what they did wrong was up here. You see that little aluminum bracket going around the harness? They didn't have it around that bracket, or over that bracket and inside of it. So it kind of like sits in that little channel there. They did not have that there, so they weren't able to get the harness high enough to get out of the way. It fell down and rubbed, and that's where it sat. So now I'm gonna finish tidying up a few things, get that fitting on, and then get some parts ordered because I'm in need of some parts. So I'm looking at these lines on the front, and the fitting that is on the radiator itself, it does not have a thread that is anything very useful. In fact, it's kind of odd because it seals on an O-ring sitting inside like a flare style joint, and that joint just has the O-ring sitting in the channel where I guess a flare would be. It seals on the O-ring, which is kind of odd. So I'm gonna probably reuse this, is what I'm thinking, and get the factory lines, or at least one of them, and then cut it up to fit AN hose. So I'll adapt it to the dash 6 on the line itself. And then I'll take that fitting and go to an AN fitting for fitting to hose, and then I'll run the hose to the lines for the transmission, and that'll make a nice custom set for them that still retains the factory quick connects on the radiator. So there's no radiator modification needed in the future if he ever changes the radiator. It still is a stock style radiator, and it is probably not adequate for the car. I'm surprised he doesn't complain about overheating, but well, we shall see, I suppose. It is a new motor. He hasn't gotten that very many miles on it, and it hasn't been very warm out since he drove it last. Anyway, it's starting to get warm now, but. do have one heck of a mess to clean up. But you know what? It was a productive day. And this car has stopped dripping, it appears. I am still going to cover the other car up. So right now I have two vets in the garage. It makes me feel a little more comfortable knowing they're not outside anymore. Tomorrow I'm going to wrap up what I can on this one, and then I'm going to go back to this one again and get more done on it. That's the one with the seat and the shark bar that I have to deal with. I also have the fittings for the oil cooler, so hopefully I can finish installing the oil cooler, additional engine oil cooler. Yeah, that's pretty much about it for the day. Subscribe, like, share, and enjoy any future videos I might make.